it's Rachel from I Need IVF, and today I wanted to have a quick chat to you about 4dp5dt. Is it the hardest day? So IVF is full of these beautiful little acronyms. So what is 4dp5dt? Essentially it stands for 4 days post 5-day transfer. So it's that period after you've transferred one of your embryos back, or a couple of them, and you're about 4 days into your 2-week wait. So for a 3-day transfer, this would be around 6 days after you'd had the transfer. Is it the hardest day, and why could it be the hardest day? The first thing is, it's around this time that if you're going to get implantation bleeding, that it will happen. Now there's huge statistics and really the range on how many women experience implantation bleeding on those statistics is ridiculously wide. So I'm not even going to talk to you about that because it's just really not very helpful. But essentially, yes, you could get implantation bleeding at this point. And obviously a lot of ladies will start to panic that this means that their transfer hasn't worked. And the important things to note here are, implantation bleeding will remain kind of quite mild. It'll be probably pinkish, possibly a little brown in colour, but it won't be full on blood colour, so it won't be bright red usually, and therefore it's best to try not to read into it too much if you get a bit of bleeding at this stage. As long as you don't get a full-on period style bleed, then there is still a possibility, and it could just be that little embryo snuggling in nice and cozy into your uterine lining that's causing that little bit of bleeding. But obviously this causes a lot of stress and anxiety. Now, implantation bleeding can start anything from like 1 day after your 5-day transfer, or like 2 to 3 days after your kind of 3-day transfer, up until past your pregnancy test, to be honest, because implantation bleeding usually is kind of in that kind of stage. So the next thing I wanted to talk about is the fact that it's kind of around the stage that you may start to get symptoms that you would associate with pregnancy. So, bloating, cramping, sore breasts, nausea, a heightened sense of smell or taste, or aversions to foods or certain smells, hot flushes, headaches. Unfortunately, all of these are probably related to the fact that you're on progesterone, which we've spoken about many times, but it is a real mind twister trying to rationalise at this point that it could be pregnancy, but it could also just be the meds. And I know I spent hours sitting going, oh, this is very exciting, I could be pregnant, and then my brain going, no, Rachel, you're probably not, chill out. Chill out, don't read too much into it. So this can cause ladies a lot of stress and worry and kind of, they get hopes up, and then the next minute they're trying to rationalise and bring those hopes down again. I did this so much during that 2-week wait. You also do a lot of Googling and things, and you find a million articles on this little pregnancy symptom meant I was pregnant, and it's really important to remember that going through IVF and being on progesterone causes a lot of these symptoms, and you can't take normal pregnancy symptoms and signs when you're doing an IVF cycle, unfortunately. So that's a bit of a brain tease at that point. Stress and anxiety generally tends to kind of really be heightened at this point as well. You've got to the 4th day after your transfer. You've probably been kept really busy for those first 3 days, whether that be, work or your partner or friends doing a brilliant job of kind of trying to distract you, going out and about, keeping busy, etc. And it's at this point where kind of the what ifs start to come in. I found that I did a lot of imagining what it would be like to have a child. I spent hours googling what my due date would be, what season is it going to be, what star sign will they be, what if I have a little boy, what if I have a little girl. And as much as they're beautiful and lovely images, you then, in the back of your mind, you're going, but it probably hasn't happened, or it might not happen, and you're trying to not get your hopes up too high. And I found it really stressful, like bouncing between those emotions of, oh my god, this could actually happen, to, but what if it hasn't? And so my mind wandered so much at this point, and I think it really does start to happen around here, that things start to become kind of real in that respect, just because usually by the 4th day, the people who were doing a great job at distracting you have had to go on and go back to work or do other things, and you're there kind of struggling through your emotions. Final and the big one is pregnancy testing. So as most of you will know, when you take your HCG trigger injection, it's advised that you don't do a pregnancy test until it's been at least 10 days from then, since you did that trigger injection, because up until that point the HCG would still be in your system and would probably give you a false positive test. But it's at this point where you're fairly certain that hasn't cleared your system, so the temptation to start doing pregnancy tests is huge. And I'm not going to lie, I gave in every single time, which is awful, but it's really hard not to. You're so desperate for that answer. You're so desperate to know whether it's worked or not, and you just can't help yourself a lot of the time. But it's important to remember that with doing those tests, you also could put yourself through a lot more stress and a lot more anxiety. For me, the first time I did get a false positive, I think it was a few days after the 4-day post transfer. Well, actually, it would have been, for me, it would have been 6 days post 3-day transfer, because I did a 3-day transfer the first time. But I think about 2 days after, so probably like 7 days after my 7 or 8 days after my transfer, I did get a false positive. And then I tested again the next day, and obviously it came back negative. And that roller coaster of emotions of thinking I could be pregnant, and then actually after that getting negative tests and realising that I wasn't, was really difficult. Now I had the opposite situation with a 5-day transfer, because obviously that was a successful cycle, and so I don't think I got a positive on 4 days, but I think at 5 or 6 days after my transfer I did get a positive, and then obviously continued to get positives. But it's really hard not to test when you're that desperate. But as you will see on a lot of websites and a lot of places where you look up these things, your HCG can range massively in the first, few weeks of pregnancy, and to be honest, throughout your entire pregnancy, there's a huge range of what is normal. And it's quite normal for people at this stage not to get a positive pregnancy test even when they're pregnant, purely because when the embryo is implanted, it hasn't had enough time to release those hormones that need to be picked up. So it's up to you, but if you can hang on a few more days, it will probably save you a lot of stress and worry of getting negative tests, when actually it's probably a little bit too early to tell. So really, that's kind of the 4 main issues around kind of the 4-day post 5-day transfer, or the 6 days post 3-day transfer, and kind of the 4 reasons I think it makes things a lot more stressful and why it's the hardest day. The one thing I would say is keep making sure that you are taking your time to relax, that you're getting your chill time. I used an IVF diary. That really helped me put all my emotions down and try and put them onto paper, so that then I could get on with the rest of my day. Keep people around you who, either know what's going on or just in general are supportive, and, are the people that you would go to on a down day. And if you need to vent, have a vent. But just remember, implantation bleeding is normal. Try not to worry. Pregnancy symptoms are normal, but don't necessarily mean it's positive or negative either way. Hi Cleo. Stress and anxiety, try to leave Google alone. Try not to overanalyze every little thing if you can help it. But I mean, let's be realistic, you're going to. Probably, unless you're a lot more chilled out than I am. And, you know, if you can hold off testing, try to, because, you know, you could put yourself through a roller coaster with tests if you didn't. Anyway, if you've got any questions, then leave them in the comments, or let us know what your experience of 4 days post 5-day transfer was. It'd be great to hear how other ladies felt, and if there are any other reasons that they found it particularly difficult. Like this video if you found it helpful, subscribe, and it'd be great to see you on our channel again, and hopefully see you in the next one.